you're going through your green card process and your green card is based on marriage, please let me introduce you to my perfect marriage green card recipe, because this is what I use for every single one of my clients, every single case. We want the recipe, okay? We want to stick to the recipe as much as possible, and I'm going to be revealing that recipe to you one at a time. Now, let's jump right in. By the way, if you do not know me, I am Attorney Lillian Chukwurah. I'm a U.S.-based immigration lawyer, and I help my clients get green cards and citizenships for themselves and their families using the U.S. immigration law system. I get asked all the time, how do I put applications together? What are the things that need to go in it? Well, let's talk about it. I'll be breaking that down for you. And if you have questions, put them in the comments, okay? The first ingredient, if we may say, in this recipe is forms, okay? You need to make sure that you have the right forms, because without the right forms, let me say it again, without the right forms, you're going to be delaying your process unnecessarily. So let's make sure that we have the right forms. The first one is forms. And on the forms, you need to make sure that you have the right things going. So the first form, when you're filing a marriage-based green card application in the U.S., okay, this recipe, right, I'm going to be going through different recipes for different cases, but this recipe is specifically for marriage-based green card applications being filed in the U.S. So let's start with the forms, right? Like I said, the forms are super, super important, and we want to make sure that we have the right forms for the application that we are filing, all right? The first thing you need is an I-130, an I-130A, an I-485, and I-864. These are the required forms, okay? Required forms. And you may be asking me, why do I need an I-130A? Because when I filed for my parents or when I filed for my child, I was not required to do an I-130A. And I will respond by telling you that I-130A is only required for marriage-based cases. So anytime you're filing an I-130 for a spouse, you need an I-130A, or USCIS will be sending you a request for evidence for the I-130A. This right here is the green card application. You must include it if you're trying to get a green card in the U.S., okay? This right here is the affidavit of support. When you are filing the green card application, you must include the affidavit of support for the marriage green card, okay? I do not want anyone telling me, oh, I filed my green card application, I didn't need this. Well, was it a marriage-based case? Because if it was, you needed it, okay? And you need to go figure that out. So this is the affidavit of support. You want to make sure it's filled out correctly and completely. All these forms, like I said, are required. Let's talk about bonus forms that you can include, okay? Yes, we have these, but I'm going to sprinkle in some bonuses that you can include. For these, you can include, as long as you include the I-485, you can include an I-765, that's the work authorization, and an I-131, that is the travel permit. Okay, that's the advance parole. Now, these two have a fee. Before April 1st, 2024, they did not have an additional fee if you're filing the green card application. Now they do. Now my clients are weighing whether to include both of them or not. Most are including this unless they already have a work authorization through another program. The second ingredient in our recipe is the documents. You want to make sure that you have the required documents for all of those forms that we filed, right? You filed the I-130, I-138, I-485, and I-864. You want to make sure that you include all the required documents for those forms. For a marriage-based green card application, the documents that you must have are the marriage certificate. You must have the marriage certificate, any divorce decree, right? Divorce cert. Again, if you've ever been married before, you need to make sure that you include this, okay? If you do not show that you're legally free to enter into this marriage, your case is going to be denied, okay? So you want to make sure that you have a divorce certificate. You want to also make sure that you have proof of citizenship. And I say proof of citizenship because there's multiple ways to show you're a citizen. So you can use your birth certificate if you were born in the U.S. You can use a U.S. passport, or you can use a certificate of citizenship, a certificate of naturalization, a CRBA certificate. There's multiple ways to show that you are a U.S. citizen. So you want to make sure that you are including that. Like I said, you need the marriage certificate, the divorce certificate if you've been married before, the proof of citizenship. Then you want to make sure, again, marriage-based green card application. You want to make sure that you include your birth certificate. So the person that's applying for the green card, you need their birth certificate, okay? You need their passport. You need proof of entry, okay? Proof of legal. The key here is legal, okay? You need proof of legal entry. And that can be an I-94, which you can get on i94.cbp.gov. And you need proof of legal entry, okay? Legal is the key here. Because if you do not have proof of your legal entry, you cannot adjust status in the U.S. There is some exceptions, but we are doing a basic green card application through marriage, the recipe. And for this recipe, you need legal entry. And then you want a relationship. Okay? You want proof of your relationship. Just a little preview. We'll be talking about this soon, okay? Because it is a big part of this recipe. So we want proof of your legal entry, proof of your relationship. So the U.S. citizen spouse, you also need their recent tax returns, okay? And you need proof of, so you need their recent tax returns. This is important because if you have their recent tax returns, it will help USCIS determine whether they meet the requirements of the affidavit of support. So that's why this is necessary. And I also like to include either an employment letter, showing that they are still employed and how much they make and all of that, or 4 recent pay stubs. Because again, you want recent ones so that you can show how much they have made the year in the year so far, and they are continuing to work. Okay, you want to show that, and that's why we include this. So these are the documents you want to make sure that you have. Okay, these are required. Your marriage certificate is required. If either of you have ever been married before, your divorce certificate, whether you got divorced in the U.S. or outside, I'll do a whole video on that one because it gets people into trouble. You want that divorce certificate, okay? You want the proof of citizenship for your U.S. citizen spouse. You want the birth certificate for the foreign spouse, the passport for the foreign spouse, proof of legal entry. Like I said, that can be an I-94 or a stamp in their passport. And you want proof of your relationship, recent tax return, and employment letter, or 4 recent pay stubs to show that they are currently employed for the purposes of the affidavit of support. And that is the second part of this recipe. First 2 parts of this recipe is forms and documents. Now let's get to the third part of this recipe. I already kind of gave you a preview, but let's get to it. Evidence of your marriage, okay? That right there can make or break your case, okay? Every single part of this recipe is important. Every single part of this recipe is important. Do not neglect one or put too much emphasis on one over the others. Every single one must be met for USCIS to have what they need to approve your case. So you want to make sure that you are following this recipe. So evidence of marriage, you want proof of joint residence. Okay. Proof of joint residence, joint finances, joint residence, joint finances. I'm trying to think of the best way to put the third one. You want to show USCIS that you are presenting yourselves as a married couple. Okay? Okay, that's the third one. And if you have these three, or some of it, or one, you are on the right track. Okay? So let's talk about each of them. The joint residence, you can do this with a lease, a mortgage, a deed, something showing that you live together. Okay? If you get mail, even junk mail, that can be used to show joint residence. Okay? You can also, if you do not have a lease and your landlord knows when your spouse moved in because you let them know, well, your landlord can write a letter confirming your joint residency. You can also, your joint finances. Next one is your joint finances. You can use your joint finances to show that you have financial responsibilities and that you are commingling your funds. This means your income. This means your income is going into your joint account, and your household expenses, your rent, your groceries, your car, everything is coming out of your joint account. So that's where bank statements are helpful to show joint finances. Having a mortgage is also great to show joint finances because it shows joint financial responsibilities. A lease also shows joint financial responsibilities because the landlord can sue either of you or both of you if the lease is not honored. Okay. And then for presenting as married, you want to provide documentation to USCIS that shows that you are showing the world that this is my spouse. So this can be pictures of you two together at events with other people, especially pictures with other people, okay? You want to make sure that you are including social media posts if you actually post on social media. Don't create social media posts just so you can file, all right? If it already exists, print it, use it, okay? And then also for this, think about all the other ways that you show the world that this is your spouse. So something people don't think about is typically when you get married, you update your emergency contact so that your job knows that this is your spouse and they are now your emergency contact. Or with your medical providers, you update that information with them. Guess what? They keep a record of it and you can use that for your case. And if you are listening to all of this and you are just, it's sounding like a lot in this recipe, well, you do not have to go through this recipe on your own. I'm kind of opening the door for you to see kind of what we do in my office when we are putting together an application. So this recipe is my recipe, figuring out what evidence to include and not include. Now that is an art, and that is an art that I love. We have clients bring us their documents and we figure out which ones are helpful, which ones are not. Sometimes they bring us documents that just has one person's name on it and it's not proof of anything, right? If it's just one person's name on the lease, it doesn't really tell me anything about your joint financial responsibilities or your joint residence. And that's something that we help you with. So if you would like help with your marriage-based green card process, go ahead and schedule a strategy session with me. You can do that. The link is in the description to this video. And if you go to my website, lillylegal.com, and click on contact us, you can also get that information and schedule a strategy session. Now let's get into the fourth part of this recipe. The interview. The interview is the final part of this recipe. Now, we want to follow this recipe And I'm guessing you're out there thinking, if I follow this recipe, I'm not going to have an interview. Well, there's a reason the interview is part of the recipe, because the chances of people having an interview is greater than them not having an interview, okay? It is normal to have an interview. Not having an interview is not normal. Having an interview is normal. So most people are going to have an interview, and you want to be prepared for it. In my office, we do a whole mock interview just on this, okay? We do a mock interview for the interview. We make sure you're prepared, you have all your documents and everything ready to go. And if you want more detail on the interview process, what questions to expect at interviews, how to prepare for an interview, I have a whole video on my channel that just goes through interview process. I'm going to link those in the description to this video and in the card up here, so that you can go through that and make sure that you are prepared for your interview. Like I said, for my clients, we do a whole mock interview because it matters, okay? Messing up at your interview, not being on the same page for your interview can ruin 1, 2, 3, right? That's why I say every step of this recipe matters. So if you are great with your forms, but your documents are lacking, delay. If you are great here, but you don't have evidence of your relationship, delay, because guess what? USCIS is either going to ask you for a request for evidence, ask for more documentation, especially if they want to approve your case without an interview and they don't have enough to approve it without an interview, they will be sending you a request for evidence for this. And then if you have an interview and you're not prepared, guess what's going to happen? Issues. Delays. You may get a request for evidence. You may get a notice of intent to deny. And you do not want either of those things after your interview. You want an approval after your interview. So watch those 2 videos that I have on my channel. Like I said, I'll be linking those in the description and in the card above, so that you have all the information you need to make sure that you are prepared for your interview, if you happen to have one. So like I said, all of these are very crucial to the recipe. If you miss one, it could derail the whole thing. So make sure that you are following the whole recipe and not just some of them and leaving the rest, okay? There's a reason there's 4. And now I know you're wondering, what is the bonus? Well, the bonus is me telling you that you do not have to go through this whole recipe on your own, okay? This recipe can be daunting. Putting everything together, making sure you have the right ingredients can be daunting, but you don't have to do it on your own. You can reach out to me and I can help you every single step of the way to make sure we put together a great recipe. All right. Now, if you would like to do that, you can go to my website, lillylegal.com, or call my office at 508-443-1788.